Welcome, Kings of War fans. Utterly Spineless here with another battle report, and here I've got my 2,000 points of Goblins. Let's see what we brought today. So, on the right-hand side here, we've got a regiment of Fleabags. These guys have Helm of the Ram upgrade to give them Thunderous 2. Then we have 2 Giants. And then coming along the back here, we've got a Horde of Trolls. And then another Horde of Trolls. 3 War Trombones. 2 regiments of Sharpsticks, and to chaff all that up, we've got 2 troops of Morbius packs. Now, if you've watched my battle reports before, you've known that I usually run these in regiments, but the last time I came into a bit of trouble with wavering, so today, thanks to a comment in the comment section who suggested running them in troops, I thought I'd try it out. So there we go, 2 troops of Morbius packs. Character-wise, this is what we got here. We have my trusty flag git with Loot of Insatiable Darkness on the right hand side with some cheeky little Bane Chant action. And then another new addition to the army today. This guy is a flag git mounted on a Fleabag, and he has Diadem of Dragonkind. So he's got cheeky little breath attack 10. So that makes 12, 12, 12 and 10. Lots of breath attacks in this army. Some nice short range shooting. And then allied in, we have a regiment of Orc Great Axes. And then a Orc Crudger on a Winged Slasher. So I've never played flying in my Goblin army before. So that'll be interesting to see how this guy gets on. And there it is, guys. 2,000 points of Orcs and Goblins. And against the Goblins, we've got 2,000 points of Salamanders. Talk us through your list, Jules. What have we got, mate?
Okay, this is a pure Salamanders army. I've got a regiment of 20 Ancients. 2 regiments of 20 Ceremonial Guard. These guys have got the Phalanx. 2 hordes, of Monstrous Infantry Tyrants. Then at the back, monster-wise, I've got 2 Ankylodon Battle Platforms.
Okay.
With the D6.
Yep.
A Fire Drake.
Yep, very nice.
I'm not too sure about these. In fact, I am sure about these guys. They are rubbish, but I take them anyway because they look good.
Dakotar Sky Riders.
Yeah.
Now, we both come to the agreement that these are a rubbish unit of flyers, aren't they?
Yes.
They're absolutely terrible rules-wise. And they're too expensive points-wise.
And Defense 3.
And Defense 3. And to top it all off, they're irregular.
Yeah.
Right. So you got high hopes for them today?
Nope.
No.
Just to show my confidence in how well I think they're going to do, they've got Heartseek Enchant.
Okay, right.
Which is the first magic item in this list. The second one being on my BSB, who's a Herald, with Loot of Darkness.
Loot.
And then I got a Slam Mage Priest Naked.
A Slam Mage Priest.
And that is exactly 2,000 points.
Right, okay, brilliant. So this is what the board is looking like after deployment, and as you can see, I went for a pretty bunched up deployment here. I didn't get to choose side. The Salamanders got to choose side, and I didn't really have a lot of options because there's a big block of woods on the left, and there's that awkward building on the right, and I could only really fit my unit of Fleabag Riders on that right flank, and I didn't want to go anywhere near the woods, obviously. So I'm having to bunch up in the middle here. I put my giant in the woods because I think, he can just march up and not suffer from a hindered charge when he charges out of the woods. So he's kind of shoring up the left flank. Got my Fleabags on the right hand side, but I'm really not happy with how they're placed because they're directly opposite his regiment of Salamanders that have Phalanx. So their Thunderous won't come into play at all. So that's a bit frustrating. And I've just put my flyer behind the lines to, right in the middle, just to see, he could go either way, left or right there. And then, obviously, just my harder-hitting units at the back, and then chaffed up in the front, just pretty standard. Let's see how the game gets on. Salamanders get first turn. So here's what the board's looking like at the end of the Salamander's first turn, and nothing major here really, just a general advance at the board. The Sky Riders on the left hand side, they've gone up and are technically in those woods because their base is just over that tree. And no shooting really from this Salamander's army. What they do have is pretty short range. They got a breath attack on that Fire Drake on the right hand side, but no long range shooting at all. So that is it for the Salamander's first turn. And that is the response from the Goblins. The flea bugs on the right hand side, they've got a bit of an issue really. If they charge that phalanx unit, they're actually going to do nothing. So I just kind of just move up and don't really do anything with those. My flyer in the middle, I've put him towards the left. The giant in the woods has moved up, so he's in charge range of some things, but can't be charged himself. Other than the Sky Riders, obviously, and the two units, the two regiments of Sharpsticks, they've moved right up. In fact, all my chaff has moved right up to kind of like force the issue. So Salamanders will have some decisions to make about charging next turn. And, oh yeah, for shooting, my little flea bag on his, my flaggit on his little flea bag, he's nimbled his way through that building there, and he's opened up with a breath attack on that unit of Ceremonial Guard. Is that what they are? Yeah, Ceremonial Guard. He's only put 2 wounds on them. And that's it for Goblin turn 1. Salamanders turn 2 then, and this is the right-hand flank. That Ceremonial Guard regiment have just marched right up and parked themselves in front of those flea bags. So they're going to have to deal with that. And then the Fire Drake has moved up and unloaded his breath attacks onto that flaggit. He's put 5 wounds on him, and he routs him. So that's a bit annoying. Then towards the middle, we've got some charges going on. Both those unit of Tyrants have charged into the Sharpsticks. And then on the right hand side, that platform, what the hell's his name? Ankledon battle platform. Those things are beasts. Defense 6, Feeler 17. So he's charged into that troop of Morbius packs. Let's get that out of the way. And then shooting wise, that guy there, that other battle platform and that mage have unloaded some shooting on that Morbius packs, and they rout that as well. And then on the left hand side, the Sky Riders have gone into the War Trombone in the middle, and then the 2 units of Salamanders, they've marched up. Only one of them has put that charge on the flea bags, because only one of them could get in. So the other ones just moved straight up. And let's see how we get on. Yeah, so needless to say, the Sky Riders rout that War Trombone. No surprises there. So they've reformed to face my Crudger on the flyer. The Sharpsticks hold though. They get wavered. They take 6 wounds and get wavered. So that's a bit of an issue there for the Salamanders. I think they would have liked to rout that. And what else? Yeah, that battle platform, when he puts 5 wounds on that troop of Morbius packs and doesn't get a good roll, and that is only wavered there. And then obviously those Sharpsticks pow, yeah, 14 wounds, they're gone. And that is what the board is looking like at the end of Salamander's turn 2. So a good turn there. So a regiment of Sharpsticks gone, a War Trombone gone, and 2 units wavering. So not a bad start for the Salamanders. Let's see how the Goblins respond with their turn 2. So Goblin turn 2, and lots of charges have been declared. If we start from the right hand side, those flea bags. So what I've decided to do there is those guys are speed 10 nimble. So instead of just charging them into their units of phalanx, there's really no point in doing that. There's no point, they're just going to die. So I've just turned them around and moved them away. I think let's just accept that I messed up on deployment there. So let's just not charge. The orcs are kind of held up here behind that unit there, so they just drop back a little bit. Both the troll hordes have gone into that unit on the left hand side, the unit of Tyrants. I didn't want to split them up, so I put them both into one, and one of them has been Bane chanted as well, so they shouldn't hopefully have an issue in routing that unit. The War Trombones have moved up to make some shooting attacks. The Giant has gone into the unit of Ancients. The other Giant's gone into the unit of Ceremonial Guard. The Flyer's gone into the front of that Gecko Tar Riders. And that's it for charges, I think. Yeah, in the shooting phase, the one War Trombone who could get some attacks off, he's moved up and he's put 4 wounds on that mage and wavered him, so that's pretty decent. That mage won't be doing anything next turn. So combat wise, the Giant puts 4 wounds on that unit of Ceremonial Guard. Sorry, 5 wounds, which is pretty good actually, but doesn't manage to get a wavering on them. And the other Giant does 4 wounds on the Ancient, which again is pretty decent. These guys are all defense 5, don't forget. Yeah, and between the 2 trolls, pow, 17 wounds goes on that unit of Tyrants, and they are routed. So that's pretty good. I needed that. My Crudger Flyer doesn't do very well though. He only puts 4 wounds on those Gecko Sky Riders from 10 attacks, wounding on hitting on 3s, wounding on 2s. Just really crap 4 wounds. I really would have liked more from there. So they hold. They're fine, not even wavered. And that is what the board is looking like at the end of Goblin turn 2. The trolls are reformed in the middle, and everything else is pretty much stuck in combat. Let's see how the Salamanders respond with turn 3. So, Salamanders turn 3, and here's the right flank, that regiment of Ceremonial Guard. They've decided not to chase those flea bags around the building. They couldn't actually get a charge off on the flea bags, obviously they were out of range. So they've just kind of pivoted and moved towards the centre. The same thing for the Fire Drake, he's moved over and he's got line of sight on that regiment of orcs there. But they were in cover, so he only puts 1 wound on them. The battle platform has charged into the front of the Troop of Morbius packs, so you should be able to finish those off. And that unit of Tyrants there have charged into the unit of Trolls. What else have we got going on? Yeah, that's the same thing. So the Ancients have gone into the Giant and put 6 wounds on him. That's a hell of a roll, that is. And the other unit have gone into the Ceremonial Guard, gone into that Giant, and they put 3 wounds on him. Again, that's fairly decent. Only 2 wounds from those Gektar Sky Riders on that Crudger. So he'll be able to charge back in next turn and should be able to finish them off, hopefully. And then the other battle platform, the one in the middle, that charges into the front of the War Trombone. I thought I'd managed to get this guy in cover, but it didn't work out, so he got charged. And yeah, that 0 represents lots, so he is dead. And then the unit of Tyrants, they managed to put 7 wounds on that Troll Horde and waver them. That's pretty damn good rolling, actually, from what I remember. And so, yeah, unfortunately, those Trolls are wavered. That's very frustrating. And that is what the board is looking like at the end of Salamander's turn 3. Goblin turn 3 then, and on the left-hand side, the Giant has gone back into that unit of Ceremonial Guard, and the Sharpsticks, who aren't wavered anymore, have performed a cheeky little corkscrew move to get a flank charge off, and between them they put those unit of Ceremonial Guard up to 11 wounds and they rout them. That's pretty good news. And the other Giant, he does just as well. He rolls out of his mind on this one and he puts that unit of Ancients up to 12 wounds, including Brutal, and he routs them too. So Giant's coming up big time on this left flank for the Goblins. That's really well. The Trolls have charged into that Mage right at the back, so they've gone straight forward and they've put him up to 8 wounds. He was already wounded by the War Trombone, remember, so they put him up to 8 and they rout him. And then on the right hand flank, those Orcs have charged into that battle platform, and again that defense 6 just being absolutely huge. Even though these guys are crushing 2, they only put 4 wounds on him and he heals 1 wound back from Iron Resolve. And the Sharpsticks have just, sorry, the flea bags on the right hand side, they've just moved across. So that is what the board is looking like at the end of Goblin turn 3. Oh, sorry, I forgot to mention the War Trombone in the shooting phase managed to put 3 wounds onto that battle platform, but again, Iron Resolve, so it recovers 1. And that is what the reforms are looking like at the end of the Goblin turn. So a pretty good turn there for the Goblins, managing to rout these 2 units here, which to be honest I didn't expect at all. Again, the Crudger fluffs his attacks on that unit of Sky Riders and doesn't put enough wounds on them at all. I think they're now up to something like 7 wounds. Which is really poor from him, but doesn't rout them. So let's move on to Salamander's turn 4. So this is the board after all the charges have been declared by the Salamanders, and as you can see, the Fire Drake and the battle platform have gone into the front of that unit of Orcs. The Tyrants up here, well, they couldn't do anything because they didn't have line of sight, so what they've done is just pivoted and just parked themselves in front of the Trolls just to tie them up at the back of the board. And then, yeah, that Crudger, he's in a bit of trouble there, the Wing Crudger. Sorry, the Wing Slasher. Yeah, he's in fluffing his attacks has cost him, because he's now been flank charged by that battle platform, which is crushing 4. Haha! So he's in serious trouble. I don't think he'll probably withstand that charge. And let's see how they got on. 9 wounds onto those orcs. They were already on 1, so I think between them they managed to do 8, which is probably about average rolling. But they do manage to rout them because they're not in inspiring range. And yeah, lots of wounds onto that wing slasher. He was already on 5. I think they between them did like another 8. So despite his inspiring, he's routed as well. And this is what the board is looking like at the end of the Salamander turn. Some nice reforms there, and yeah, that Fire Drake has managed to park himself in front of the flea bags. Let's see how the Goblins respond in their turn 4. So Goblin turn 4, and those flea bags have charged into the front of that Fire Drake. I would have liked the flank charge on that battle platform behind, but the way it worked out, I couldn't get line of sight, so they had to go into there. The Trolls have gone into the front of those Tyrants. They didn't really have a lot of choice. That War Trombone has moved just out of range of that battle platform, and he's going to get some shooting attacks onto that one there. And I put the Giant and the Sharp Sticks into the Sky Riders. It's probably overkill. They're already pretty heavily wounded, but I didn't think the Sharp Sticks could do it alone, so I had to put the Giant in as well. And the other Giant, he was chaffed up by the Salamander standard bearer, who moved from there and just parked himself in front last turn, so he didn't have a lot of choice but to put that charge in there. And then in the shooting phase, that War Trombone doesn't roll very well. He puts 1 wound on that battle platform, but he heals it straight back with Iron Resolve. So let's get on to the combat phase. And the flea bags do really well here. They put 7 wounds on that Fire Drake. Now he's defense 5, so I think they should probably only have done about 4 on average, and they do 7 and then roll a 10 on the nerve and rout him in a 1-up, which is not what I expected at all, and a massive bonus for me, so that's very good. The Trolls, on the other hand, they roll well below average, so they only put 4 wounds on those Tyrants and don't manage to waver them. That's a little bit disappointing. I would have liked some extra wounds there, and some nice hand modelling action there by Jules, thank you very much. And yeah, so between the Giant and the Sharp Sticks, they managed to put 5 wounds onto the Sky Riders, and they rout them as well. And the Giant only puts 3 wounds on that Salamander BSB, so he's sticking around. And this is what the board is looking like at the end of the Goblin turn. You can see some reforms there. The Sharp Sticks and the Giant reformed to face towards the battle platform, and so the Fleabags reformed as well. Let's see how Salamanders respond in turn 5. So Salamander turn 5 then, and the Ankledon battle platform comes up big time here. The Giant was sitting on 6 wounds. He charges in and puts him up to 10, and then rolls a 9 on the nerve roll and routs him. So that's really good rolling there from that guy. I didn't expect that, and that is a little bit disappointing, I'm going to be honest. And again, the Tyrants do really well. They put 9 wounds on those Trolls, which is really good, and they waver those. And then that is what the board is looking like at the end of the Salamander turn. So really good turn there for Salamanders. They really needed both those combats to come up well, and both of them did. Wavering those Trolls is very frustrating, and routing that Giant is, I did not expect that at all. So really good turn there from the Salamanders. Let's see how the Goblins respond. So Goblin turn 5, and the Fleabags have raced across the board and parked themselves directly behind that battle platform. Unfortunately, they weren't in charge range. The Giant has gone into the front of it, and the Sharp Sticks have gone into the front. They're going to help out too. And yeah, the Trolls were waver, and they do manage to regenerate 2 wounds. But I can't do anything, unfortunately. But the War Trombone has moved up and has unloaded some shooting attacks on those Tyrants, and it puts another 4 wounds on them. That's rolling pretty decent, and then that puts them up to 8, and then they do manage to waver them, so that's really good. They think they've just saved the Troll's life there with some classic War Trombone shooting. And between the Giant and the Sharp Sticks, they only managed to put 3 wounds on that battle platform. And obviously with the Iron Resolve, they heal 1 back. So they've gone from 5 back to 4, and they don't manage to waver it. That defense 6 is really too tough to break through. And that is what the board is looking like at the end of Goblin turn 5. So Salamanders turn 6 then, this is what the board is looking like after their movement phase, and that Ankledon battle platform there is charged into the front of the Sharp Sticks. Probably for the best. They're heavily wounded anyway, and it's coming to the later turns of the game, and you want to be picking up points, so I doubt they would survive that charge. And the other battle platform here has a... Hold on a sec. It looks like a bit of cheeky movement. Yeah, they were there, and now it's there. So yeah, about 120 degree pivot then from the battle platform, and he's looking to open up some range attacks on those trolls, and the ceremonial guard have come through here. So let's have a look. So yeah, the combat phase, those that unit of sharp sticks are routed, and that battle platform reforms. And then in the shooting, this is what happened here. The tyrants, sorry, they were wavered, if you remember, and my opponent thought that you could make a like a sidestep move if you wavered. I didn't think you could. You can only reform and back, which is the case. But to be honest, we couldn't be bothered to get out the rulebook and look it up, so I just let it slide. And I don't think it made a difference really, because it was the difference between the trolls getting cover and not getting cover, and they were heavily wounded anyway. So the blowpipes do, I think, 1 or 2 wounds on those trolls, and then that is enough to waver them again, unfortunately. And that is the end of the Salamander turn 6. Let's see if we go on to Goblin turn 6. So there we go then. Right, okay, if we have a look at this the giant and the flea bags on the left-hand side, this is what it was like 2 turns ago. Now, those sharp sticks are routed, and my opponent reckons he reformed that battle platform in order to not get flanked by the giant or the flea bags, which I thought was absolutely ludicrous, to be honest. But by the time I'd already moved the flea bags and charged the flank, and my opponent says, hold on, it wasn't a flank charge, so I moved them back, and then obviously we lost placement of all the models, so there we are. I just said, oh, okay, fair enough. So that's why some absolutely crazy pivoting has gone on in there. So both the giant and the flea bags are in the front somehow of that Anklodon battle platform. And yeah, those trolls are wavered. It's not doing anything. That's frustrating. But the war trombone saves the day here. He moves up and unloads another breath attack on those tyrants, and he puts 3 wounds on them, and they rout them. So there we go. They're gone. And I really need to get rid of this battle platform, because that's 250 points in this kill scenario. So it's already on 6 wounds, and some decent rolling will get this off the board. Let's see what I get. I put 6 wounds on it. Oh, sorry, I get it up to 10 wounds. That's what I did. I got it up to 10 wounds, and I needed a 7, because it's Fearless 17. I needed a 7 re-rolling in order to route it and get it off the board, and I didn't get it, unfortunately. So it passed its nerve check. There it goes back to 9 for Iron Resolve. So that's a bit of a bummer. I didn't get that. So we roll for another turn, and we don't get it. That is the end of turn 6, and that is the end of the game. So there we go. Let's add up the points for the kill scenario, and the Goblins have routed 1,260 points worth of Salamanders, and the Salamanders have routed 1,335 points worth of Goblins. So that is only a 75 point difference between the 2 teams, and that is not enough to secure a victory for the Salamanders. So that is a drawn game, and probably a fair result. I think both teams played pretty well here, and there wasn't much to separate them both throughout the entire game, so I think a draw is a fair result. And the MVP award goes to this Anklodon battle platform. Now, this guy that was on the left-hand flank of the board, he routed a War Trombone, then he routed the Crudge on a Wing Slasher, then he routed the Giant, and then he routed a regiment of Sharpsticks, all on his own. No joke. Now, these Anklodon battle platforms, if you just look at their stats, yeah, they're expensive, they're 250 points, but where they really come into their own is they're not offensively devastating, despite the hundreds and hundreds of points this guy managed to rout, but it's really that defense 6 and that fearless 17. Now, my opponent had 2 of these, so he's got 500 points in these, both left on the board, and I think that's just a huge points denial for your opponent, because they're almost impossible to get off the board. They really are. If you think about what I had to throw at this guy, and he was still on the board at the end of the game, because that Iron Resolve as well makes a huge difference. He's constantly ticking up those wounds every time you're making him test, so that Fearless 17 is closer to Fearless 20, to be honest. And yeah, just a really, really difficult unit to deal with. Okay, so let's look at some lessons learned going into the next game. Where did we go wrong? This is the board before the first turn is taken at the end of deployment. Deployment-wise, I thought I did okay, to be honest. The only thing I really messed up on is this unit of flea bags here. I wanted to put them out on the flank, but to be honest, I didn't really have many options because I didn't want to put them in the woods, obviously. So my opponent played it smart here, and he put his phalanx there because he knew I like to put these on the flank. I'm not going to put them on this flank, so that was quite smart. So I definitely got outplayed there. But having said that, I like the way that I moved them up and then made use of their speed 10 nimble to bring them back round and then bring them into the game towards the end of it. Now, what some people usually make the mistake of doing is like having bad deployment and still cracking on anyway and just moving them up the board and smashing them into the phalanx. You see people do that a lot with cavalry. They lose the deployment game, but then for some reason don't use the high movement of cavalry to actually make up for it, which is pretty poor actually. But I felt I did quite well with those in the end. So that's both a positive and a negative thing, I suppose. What else? I think my main issue, my flyer here. Now, obviously being a goblin player, we don't have access to flying at all. So I don't have the experience that I should have with flying units, and charging that flyer into this unit of Sky Riders. They were about here when I charged them. Yeah, that was really dumb. I probably should have made some better plays. Maybe like if he was, I think he was about here in turn 2 or 3, was it? Maybe like flying him over the top and looking for some rear or flanks, which is really what you want to be doing with your flyers. You've got that ability to just jump over things, and you pay a lot of points for it. So you really want to be looking at some flanks and rear charges. That probably would have been better. You know, he rolled pretty poorly, but I shouldn't have put myself in a position where I did that. That was annoying. So yeah, more experience needed with the flying units, definitely. And another thing that I did really badly is this flea bag here. Sorry, this flag get on the flea bag. Now, I gave him the breath attack weapon, and then I moved him up in the first turn right to there in order to get some breath attack shooting. This is just really impatient, really. I just wanted to get some breath attacks out on the first turn, and then he died on the second turn. And what I knew what I did in this list. So I've got my flag get there, and I've got this flag get there, and those were the only two sources of inspiring I had in this whole army, and I wasted one guy that was dead by turn 2. So I essentially got 2,000 points on the board and only one flag get with inspiring, which is really bad. It cost me. I normally run 3 inspirings. This time I only ran 2, which is less than normal anyway, and then I sacrificed one in turn 2 stupidly. So that was a big mistake as well. I'm not saying I'm going to drop this guy from my list. I really like the idea of having like a speed 10 nimble individual running around breath attack and things. So I will put him in again, but I just make better use of him, I think. So yeah, 3 things to learn on that one. Better use of flyers. Don't sacrifice units, especially when you need their inspiring. And yeah, just better deployment with those guys. So there we go. Lessons learned. So there we go, guys, another King's War battle report. I hope you enjoyed that one, and I'll catch you on the next one.